Have you ever felt like life kept taking from you over and over again? Keanu Reeves did too. But despite losing his best friend, his child, and the woman he loved, he never let grief turn him cold. Because the real strength isn't in pretending you're okay. It's in choosing kindness when you're broken. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. The studio fell silent as Keanu Reeves, now 60, settled into his chair. His usual reserved demeanor remained, but there was an openness in his eyes that suggested he was ready to share something deeper than his typical press interviews allowed, a vulnerability that transformed the atmosphere in the room to one of intimate reverence. The lines etched around his eyes told stories of both joy and sorrow, each one earned through a life lived authentically against Hollywood's manufactured backdrop. People think they know my story from what they've read online, Keanu began, his voice carrying that distinctive gentle cadence that had narrated countless beloved characters through decades of cinema. The films, the memes about my sadness, the celebrity status. But the journey to get here was far more complex than most realize. His words hung in the air, not as a celebrity's practice deflection, but as a man prepared to excavate buried truths. The interviewer nodded encouragingly, aware that Reeves rarely opened up about his personal life. This conversation had been months in the making, a delicate dance of trust building through preliminary conversations where no cameras rolled. Now, with recording lights glowing softly, Keanu seemed ready to traverse territories of his heart rarely mapped in public discourse. I was 3 years old when my father left, Keanu continued, his fingers lightly tapping on the armrest, a subtle pianist's gesture betraying the rhythm of emotions beneath his composed exterior. He was struggling with substance abuse issues, and he just walked away. He paused, the weight of that childhood fracture still resonant 6 decades later. My earliest memories don't include him. That absence shapes you in ways you don't fully comprehend until much later in life. It creates invisible architectures in your relationships, expectations of abandonment that you're not even conscious of building. After his parents' marriage dissolved, Keanu's life became defined by movement and nomadic existence that taught him both detachment and adaptability. My mother was remarkable, incredibly strong, fierce in her determination to create beauty in chaotic circumstances. She was a costume designer, and we moved frequently for her work from Lebanon, where I was born, to Australia, then New York, and eventually settling in Toronto. By the time I was 13, I'd attended 4 different high schools. His eyes reflected both pride in his mother's resilience and the shadow of childhood instability, dual truths he'd long ago learned to hold simultaneously. He described the challenge of constantly being the new kid, the perpetual outsider seeking entry into already established social ecosystems. When you're always starting over, you develop this sense that permanence is an illusion. Relationships feel temporary because, in my experience, they often were. I struggled academically, partly because of undiagnosed dyslexia, but also because I never felt grounded anywhere. Education requires a foundation, and mine was constantly shifting. His voice carried no self-pity, only the hard-earned wisdom of retrospective understanding. The interviewer asked how this instability had affected him, both as a developing child and the man he would become. It creates a particular kind of loneliness, Keanu responded thoughtfully, his gaze momentarily distant as if viewing that solitary child across the decades. You learn to be self-contained. You carry your home within you because external homes keep changing. You become fluent in silence and observation. But the flip side is that you develop adaptability and resilience. Those qualities ultimately served me well, though the path to recognizing them as strengths rather than wounds was long and often painful. He offered a gentle smile. The very transience that hurt me as a child became invaluable as an actor. I learned to inhabit temporary worlds convincingly because I'd been doing it my entire life. Despite the challenges, there were bright spots that illuminated his childhood landscape. In Toronto, I discovered ice hockey. I was a good goalie, he said with a small smile that blossomed into rare, unguarded delight. For a kid who felt like an outsider, sports provided belonging. The ice was the one place where movement made perfect sense. The constant motion, the necessity of anticipating others' actions, the protective gear, it all felt like a physical manifestation of how I moved through the world anyway. Just with clearer rules and consequences. Drama class became another sanctuary, a sacred space where his perceived differences transformed from liabilities into gifts. My dyslexia made traditional academic success difficult. Reading aloud was tortuous, a public exposure of what I saw as fundamental brokenness. His voice softened, acknowledging his younger self's unnecessary shame. But in drama, something clicked. I could inhabit characters and express emotions I couldn't articulate in daily life. My drama teacher saw something in me that I couldn't yet see in myself, not just potential talent, but a depth of emotional understanding that came from living between worlds for so long. The interviewer observed how those early experiences seemed to have cultivated both Keanu's legendary empathy and his equally famous ability to maintain privacy within fame's glaring spotlight, qualities that had endeared him to generations of fans beyond his undeniable talent. Keanu nodded thoughtfully, his expression suggesting this connection had never explicitly occurred to him. Perhaps you're right. When you grow up guarding parts of yourself not from shame, but from simple self-preservation, you develop an intuitive understanding of others' boundaries. And when you've experienced invisibility, you recognize the profound grace of being truly seen. He paused, considering something deeper. The spaces between words often hold more truth than the words themselves. I learned that early, watching my mother navigate difficult circumstances with dignified silence. Maybe that's why I've always been comfortable with quietness, with the unspoken, both in my work and my life. In this rare moment of reflection, the man known for guarding his privacy revealed not sensational details but something more valuable: the emotional archaeology of a life dedicated to finding authenticity in an industry built on illusion. The journey from that rootless child to the centered, compassionate presence before the camera traced a map not of Hollywood achievement but of human resilience, each role and relationship a stepping stone across waters of loss toward shores of greater wisdom and deepened capacity for connection. At 17, Keanu made the life-changing decision to drop out of high school and pursue acting, a pivotal moment when intuition overpowered conventional wisdom in a way that would define his unconventional path forward. That decision terrified my mother, understandably, he reflected, a shadow of remembered guilt crossing his features. She'd worked so hard to provide stability, sacrificed so much to create some semblance of normalcy despite our constant relocations, and here I was, choosing what seemed like the least stable career possible, a profession where rejection is the daily currency and success the rare exception. His voice softened with gratitude that still resonated decades later. But she supported me anyway, not with reckless permissiveness, but with this profound trust in my internal compass. Her faith in me became a foundation I could build upon when I doubted myself, a maternal inheritance more valuable than any financial security. The early years in Hollywood were punishing, a brutal apprenticeship in both the craft of acting and the art of perseverance. I lived in my car for a while when I first moved to Los Angeles, Keanu revealed, not as a polished anecdote of struggle preceding inevitable success, but as a genuine recollection of uncertain days when his dreams seemed potentially foolish. I'd drive to auditions, change clothes in public restrooms, brush my teeth at gas stations, and try to look like I wasn't struggling, like I belonged in rooms where decisions were made about who deserved opportunities. His hands gestured subtly, revealing a vulnerability rarely displayed in public. The rejection is relentless in this industry, a constant stream of not quite right judgments that chip away at your confidence. For every role you get, there are dozens of no's along the way, each one requiring you to rebuild your belief that you have something worthwhile to offer. You develop calluses on your spirit, protective layers that still allow you to remain open to the vulnerability acting demands. His first significant break came with Bill Ted's Excellent Adventure, a cultural phenomenon that simultaneously launched his career and threatened to define its boundaries. Being typecast as Ted created another kind of box I needed to break out of, he acknowledged with gentle self-awareness. People assumed that was who I was, this lovable but dim character with a good heart but limited intellectual capacity. The struggle to be seen for my range rather than a single popular role was real and sometimes profoundly frustrating. A thoughtful pause followed. But I learned something valuable from that experience, that public perception is just another form of transience. It would change if I remained patient and continued choosing roles that challenged me, regardless of whether they aligned with others' expectations. Throughout his 20s, while his career was slowly building momentum, Keanu formed a deep friendship with actor River Phoenix that transcended professional connection and became a brotherhood of similar souls. "River was like a brother to me," Keanu said, his voice softening to a reverent timbre that transformed the studio's clinical atmosphere. "We connected on this profound level that defied explanation." He understood the contradiction of feeling both seen and invisible in this industry, the strange dichotomy of being simultaneously observed by millions yet rarely truly witnessed as your authentic self. His eyes reflected memories of conversations that clearly remained vivid despite the intervening decades. River possessed this extraordinary empathy and emotional intelligence, combined with a raw talent that made everything he did appear effortless. We would talk for hours about art, philosophy, the responsibility of influence, conversations that helped shape who I wanted to be in this business. River's death from an overdose in 1993 was the first in a series of profound losses that would shape Keanu's life, a defining fracture in his emotional timeline. "I was filming Speed when I got the news," he remembered, the pain still evident beneath his composed exterior. "The grief was overwhelming, this tsunami of disbelief and anger and pure sorrow." River was just 23. So much light, so much talent, gone in an instant. It was incomprehensible, this vibrant, brilliant person suddenly reduced to past tense. His fingers unconsciously formed a fist, then released a physical manifestation of the tension between holding on and letting go. There's something particularly devastating about losing someone so young, with so much unfulfilled promise. It violates our innate sense of narrative order, of how stories should unfold. The interviewer noted how Keanu has rarely spoken about this loss publicly, despite its profound impact. "Grief is intensely private," he responded, his expression suggesting careful consideration of each word. "And in Hollywood, there's this unspoken expectation that personal tragedies won't interfere with the machine of production. You're supposed to compartmentalize, to separate your breaking heart from your professional obligations. The show must go on, regardless of what's happening in the wings of your personal life." A subtle shift in his posture revealed the weight of memory. But that kind of loss changes you at a cellular level. It rewrites your understanding of time, of certainty, of what matters. I couldn't articulate that transformation then, and perhaps that's why I rarely discussed it. Some experiences defy the limitations of language. As his star rose with films like Speed and The Matrix, Keanu's personal life faced its greatest challenge, a double tragedy that would have broken many. "In 1999, my girlfriend Jennifer Syme and I were expecting a daughter," he said, his voice steady despite the evident pain of the memory, a testament to hard-won resilience rather than emotional distance. "Ava was stillborn at 8 months. One day we were preparing a nursery, choosing names, imagining a future, and then suddenly emptiness." His eyes reflected the profound disorientation of that time. "The grief tore apart our relationship, though Jennifer and I remained close. Some sorrows are too enormous to bear together. The gravitational pull of that much pain can collapse even the strongest connections." Then came an unimaginable second tragedy that defied any concept of cosmic fairness. Jennifer died in a car accident in 2001. She was only 28. The simplicity of his statement belied the catastrophic impact of this compounded loss. Losing both her and our daughter within such a short time, there's no preparation for that kind of loss, no roadmap for navigating that territory. It alters your relationship with the future, with hope itself. He paused, gathering himself. You find yourself in this liminal space between acceptance and disbelief, acknowledging what's happened while simultaneously being unable to comprehend it. The mind creates these small mercies of partial understanding because the full realization would be too overwhelming. The studio remained suspended in respectful silence, bearing witness to revelations offered not for sympathy but as testament to the capacity of the human spirit to endure, to transform suffering into compassion, to continue finding beauty in a world that had revealed its most brutal aspects. In Keanu's quiet dignity lay perhaps his most powerful performance, the authentic portrayal of a man who had walked through fire and emerged not unscathed, but undiminished in his capacity for kindness, presence, and genuine connection. The studio remained completely silent as Keanu described this period of his life. People sometimes ask why I seem sad in certain photos from that era. How could I not be? But grief isn't just sadness. It's this complex tapestry of emotions that becomes woven into who you are. During this darkest period, Keanu found solace in his work, particularly the Matrix trilogy. There was something powerful about playing Neo, a character searching for meaning in a world that doesn't make sense. His journey from confusion to purpose paralleled my own struggle to find meaning amid loss. The interviewer asked how he had managed to avoid the destructive behaviors that often accompany such profound grief in Hollywood. I've seen too many people I care about destroyed by substance abuse, Keanu replied. River, and others. I understood early on that numbing the pain only postpones it. And my sister's battle with leukemia gave me perspective. Keanu's sister Kim had been diagnosed with leukemia in the 1990s. Watching someone you love fight for their life changes your relationship with your own pain. Kim's courage during her decade-long battle made my suffering seem manageable by comparison. Her resilience became my North Star. Thankfully, Kim eventually went into remission, but the experience left an indelible mark. I became her primary caretaker for a while. Those years taught me that service to others is the most direct path out of your own suffering. When you're focused on easing someone else's pain, your own becomes secondary. This philosophy would come to define Keanu's approach to both his career and personal life. I've been fortunate to earn significant money from some films, particularly The Matrix. It never felt right to hoard that when so many in our industry, the crews, the stunt performers, work incredibly hard for much less recognition and compensation. Reports have suggested that Keanu gave away significant portions of his Matrix earnings to the special effects and costume design teams. When asked about this, he seemed uncomfortable with the praise. The film's success was a collective achievement, he said simply. Everyone's contribution mattered. The financial aspect of it isn't something I've ever wanted to highlight. This humility extends to his approach to fame. Unlike many celebrities, Keanu is known for taking public transportation, waiting in lines, and engaging with fans genuinely. Fame is strange, he reflected. It creates this illusion of knowing someone based on characters they've played or headlines about them. I've never wanted to build walls between myself and other people. We're all just trying to make our way through this life. The interviewer noted that despite all his success, Keanu has never seemed to embrace the trappings of celebrity. Material excess has never interested me much, he responded. I've lived in the same apartment for years. I find joy in riding my motorcycles, playing bass poorly, he added with a self-deprecating smile, and connecting with people who don't care about my IMDb page. One of the most striking aspects of Keanu's career has been its longevity and evolution. After a period of fewer prominent roles in the mid-2000s, he experienced a remarkable resurgence with John Wick in 2014. The industry had largely written me off as a 90s action star past his prime, Keanu acknowledged. John Wick was rejected by multiple studios. No one believed an actor nearing 50 could lead a new action franchise. The film's massive success spawned multiple sequels and revitalized his career. There's a certain freedom that comes with being underestimated, he mused. When expectations are low, you're free to take risks. I've built my career on being drawn to projects that personally resonate, not those that seem strategically advantageous. This authenticity extends to his other creative pursuits, including co-founding a motorcycle company, playing in a band, and publishing books of poetry. I'm not particularly skilled at any of these things, he said with characteristic modesty. But they bring me joy. After facing significant loss, you develop an appreciation for pursuing what genuinely interests you rather than what others expect. At 60, Keanu has achieved a rare status in Hollywood, respected for his craft, admired for his character, and beloved for his authenticity. The interviewer asked what wisdom his younger self could have used during his darkest moments. I would tell that young man that the pain won't disappear, but it will transform, he said thoughtfully. That loneliness can be a teacher if you listen carefully enough. That the feelings of not belonging can become a strength, allowing you to move between worlds and connect with all kinds of people. He continued, I tell him that the losses that seem unbearable will somehow be absorbed into who you become. Not forgotten or minimized, but integrated. And that kindness, both receiving it and extending it to others, will save you in ways you can't imagine. When asked about retirement, Keanu smiled. I love what I do. As long as my knees hold up and people keep inviting me to tell stories, I'll keep going. There's a privilege in aging in this industry, the opportunity to bring accumulated experience to each new role. That experience has made him a mentor to younger actors on set. The film industry can be brutally competitive. I try to create the kind of environment I wish I'd experienced more often as a young actor, one of collaboration rather than hierarchy. As the interview neared its conclusion, the conversation turned to what Keanu hopes his legacy might be. I'm uncomfortable with the concept of legacy, he admitted. We're all just passing through this life, doing our best with the time we have. If anything, I hope people remember that I tried to treat others with respect, regardless of their status or what they could do for me. He paused, then added, and maybe that I tried to create stories that offered people a few hours of escape or connection or meaning. That's the magic of film at its best. It reminds us we're not alone in our experiences. The interviewer asked what keeps him grounded despite decades of fame. Perspective, Keanu said simply. My mother worked incredibly hard as a single parent. My sister fought for her life. Friends like River had their time cut tragically short. How could I possibly take myself too seriously in light of all that? He continued, and the reality is, beneath the fame and the films, I'm just another person trying to make sense of this brief, beautiful, painful experience we call life. The moments that have mattered most have rarely been the premieres or awards. They've been quiet conversations with loved ones, encounters with strangers who shared their stories, motorcycle rides at sunrise. As the cameras prepared to stop rolling, the interviewer asked one final question: what would Keanu say to viewers who are currently facing their own dark nights of the soul? He thought for a moment, his expression serious yet compassionate. I would say that you're not alone, even when it feels that way. That the pain you're experiencing is real and valid, but it's not the entirety of who you are or what your life will be. He leaned forward slightly, as if speaking directly to someone in need. Find the small anchors that keep you tethered: a beloved pet, a daily ritual, a creative outlet, service to others. Be gentle with yourself on the hardest days. And remember that transformation often emerges from our deepest wounds. With a final thoughtful nod, he concluded, we're all works in progress until the very end. The point isn't to achieve some perfect state of happiness or success, it's to keep showing up with as much kindness and authenticity as we can muster. Sometimes that's enough. The studio lights dimmed as the interview concluded. Keanu Reeves, actor, survivor, reluctant philosopher, stood to leave, the quiet dignity that has defined his public persona intact. Yet those watching sensed they had glimpsed something rare, the authentic journey of a man who had transformed personal tragedy into a life of meaning, purpose, and extraordinary kindness. If Keanu's story touched your heart and ignited your spirit, we have one request: subscribe to our channel right now by clicking that big red button below. We deliver life-changing stories of triumph over adversity every single week that will transform your mindset and fuel your personal growth journey. Don't just stop there. Smash that like button to help this message reach thousands more who desperately need this hope today. Your one click could change someone's life forever. Share this video with anyone who's struggling or feeling trapped in their circumstances. Be the person who sends them the message that could spark their transformation. Turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon so you never miss our powerful content designed to help you overcome any obstacle and achieve greatness. Join our exclusive community in the comments section below. Tell us where you're watching from and how Keanu's journey has inspired you. Your story could be the exact word someone else needs to hear today. At Motivation for Success, we don't just tell stories, we ignite revolutions in people's lives. Our mission is to prove that your darkest moments can become the foundation for extraordinary achievement. This is the channel where setbacks become comebacks. Where victims become victors. Where pain transforms into purpose. So what are you waiting for? Take action now. Subscribe, like, share, and join the millions who are already part of the Motivation for Success family. Together, we'll turn your biggest challenges into your greatest victories. Remember, your best life begins the moment you decide it's possible. We'll see you in the next video.